default's a bitch, and God knows it is. Secondly, you've heard them say in different ways, I just read the templates, I follow the steps, and that's what it takes. Is we had a real bright Australian engineer come through the program a few years ago, and he said, I just had to dumb the process down. If I thought too much about the process, I started thinking about this and a bunch of other stuff that has nothing to do with following the steps. And I think you can't dumb down the fucking process much more than it is. I mean, especially when I use the analogy, there's just one moving part, and it's the amoeba of life. It's a teaching point, but one of the main reasons we started doing this is because we had 4 fights and 3 seminars in the library, in the drawing room amongst you guys. But on the 4th, 5th, and for some reason the 4th, 5th, and graduation night, all of a sudden everybody gets, I don't know if it's testosterone or they get, mostly they're drinking more. And there's always somebody in the group that doesn't like it. One of the other guys got a loud mouth or whatever. So we had 4 fights and 3 seminars, and a couple times they broke some expensive antique furniture. The kids paid for it. I'm not bitching about that. They ponied up how much. They had a little difficulty that it was expensive, one of the pieces of furniture that they broke, but they ponied up, gave the credit card to Kim, and they paid for it. But then I said, well, this is bullshit. And so I said that, so I had my crack staff order a ring, and that's a small ring, that's not a big ring. And of course now we've added to it. It's a good exercise. And so whether you participated or not, just viewing it is a good exercise. And notwithstanding the smart-ass remarks that we get from the YouTubers. Okay, you're out of shape. Okay, what else is the takeaway?
Don't think.
Yeah, I mean, when you think too much, it's like Mike Tyson said, everybody had a plan until I smashed him in the face, and then all of a sudden the plan, And we've had people that have gone out and gotten boxing lessons for a few weeks before they got here. But shadow boxing is not the same as getting punched in the mouth. I mean, there's just no comparison. And so, as you well saw up there, and the natural instincts of a couple of you when the person went down was to jump on him, which is the caveman is there. And that's the point I'm trying to make. Down deep inside, when you get past the gentlemanly bullshit, okay, the caveman, the survival instinct is great. So I transferred my survival from bar of bad boy to finance very easily. I made that transition pretty damn easily. And when you think about that, your financial survival, although you're not going to go bankrupt or you're not going to be buried by the Spartans in a big ditch, your financial survival is how you implement the QLA steps. Because the QLA steps are significantly easier than what we've just witnessed. And now you've heard 5 people, I guess, on the webinars, ranged in age from 20 to 57, from the Netherlands, Singapore, the UK, Malta, yeah, not all over the world, but pretty much. And you've heard them say, default's a bitch, and God knows it is. Secondly, you've heard them say in different ways, I just read the templates, I follow the steps, and that's what it takes. Is we had a real bright Australian engineer come through the program a few years ago, and he said, I just had to dumb the process down. If I thought too much about the process, I started thinking about this and a bunch of other stuff that has nothing to do with following the steps. And I think you can't dumb down the fucking process much more than it is. I mean, especially when I use the analogy that there's one moving part, and it's the amoeba of life. It's one cell, a paramecium or whatever that one cell thing is. Paramecium. This QLA model, and a lot of the guys don't look at it that way because they want, especially the successful ones, they don't want it to think that this is the simplest fucking deal on the planet that I got rich off of. And when you go out, those guys talk about the process and a lot more, they've added bells and whistles to it to make it sound more important to everybody else. Because when I go, we got one part that moves, that's not as fancy or that's not as sophisticated. But it's not a very sophisticated program, it just isn't. It's hard, but certainly not impossible, and you can do it. Everything changes. As Margot said, the board is easy. It's the easiest part of the process. The hardest part is at the end when you've got to run the businesses. You've got to run the companies, and because that's a son of a bitch. Because the seller is going to be putting on his best dress. The seller is going to be giving you all the reasons why this is a great deal for you. And then you get out there and find out that the employees are worthless or this, that, and the other thing. And then you're going to find out the reality. And then most people that have come through this program have never fired anybody. They've been fired, but they've never fired anybody. And they've never fired a senior board member. And so you're going through all these things that would normally be taught to you if you're a 20, 25, 30-year career at a big company. You will have fired somebody. And or unfortunately you may have been fired. But you've got to, this is all compacted into 2, 3, 4 years at the outset, and so it's a lot of information to assimilate. It's a lot of information for you to swallow, and it's a lot of information, most of which doesn't resonate with you because you've never done it before. But once you get the hang of it, like some of the kids that you've heard, it's not terribly difficult. Intellectually, QLA is easy. Emotionally, QLA is hard. Intellectually, it's easy. I mean, I could give you a test in a couple days, and most of you would score very high on the test. But doing it is something completely different. Any other takeaways about the boxing? Other than everybody's out of shape. That's more or less a given. Yes, sir.
Action is totally different than seeing it in a video.
Correct. Absolutely. Absolutely. And I told you when I was at the Mike Tyson fight when he won the championship, and I'm sitting in the third row, and the ring is about there, and Mike was hitting the guy with such velocity that the perspiration that was flying off of that other guy's head was hitting me, and it felt like ice. I mean, stinging my face. It was coming so hard. I can't imagine what that guy's poor head felt like. That Tyson was whooping on. Yeah, it's completely different. And that's why there's a saying, we've had a couple of real boxers here. Shadow boxing, you know, when you're fighting in the mirror, is a horse of a different color than when somebody's punching you. It is, it's different. And just as taking action, the guys that did better in the boxing brought it to the other guy, okay? Taking action. And that's what just pulling the trigger instead of, dancing around. Of course, in a 1 minute round, you don't have much time to dance around, okay? Because it's over before you know it. And for some of you that ran out of gas, it wasn't over soon enough, and which is pretty natural. But again, on one round, you're coming out full steam. You don't have 5, 6 rounds to dance around and feel what the guy reach is and all that. I mean, you're just coming out, smoking. And that's why we're going to keep it to 1 round. We get people hurt with 1 round, let alone if we had, several rounds. That our friend is looks like we're going to take him off to the infirmary to get his shoulder put back into place. Normally we have 1 chiropractor here or an orthopedic doctor. We got none in this group. So, but normally we can fix it ourselves. By the way, the average weight gain during the week of the seminar, girls 3 pounds, guys 5 to 7 pounds. Because you're eating normally significantly more calories and laced with alcohol is a bad combination for a diet. And but we're not weighing you at the end or anything. Although there is a scale in the gym, but I wouldn't recommend anybody step on it. Any questions from anybody? Okay, we'll see you for dinner in there, and I'll see you at my 5:30 in a few minutes, okay?